Okay, so good morning, friends. Yesterday we have seen these two examples, uh, and now we are going further. So this is also we've seen. Now let's see. The next topic is the decay of motion in underdamped free vibration case. So up till now we used to see the free vibrations in the case of undamped as well as for the damped free vibration case. We have seen several examples which related to this particular topic. Now in the same topic, if I take it little ahead, then I need to see what is the decay in the motion if you consider the same underdamped free vibration case. So this is applicable for underdamped free vibration case, right? This is a very important. This is applicable for underdamped free vibration case. If you see, this is what the response of underdamped free vibration, what we have seen. If you remember, this is the underdamped free vibration response where we have drawn, you can say, such kind of envelope. This envelope is representing the e raised to minus eta omega t, if you remember, right? This is e raised to minus eta omega t. So this is a decreasing function, and there is a one more function which is a cos omega dt plus b sin omega dt, which is a harmonic function, right? So if you see the response, so response is like this, as the amplitude is decreasing in this way with the as the time progressing. So if I say my displacement is u1, u2, u3, u4 up to the un. Now if I want to find out the decay, what do you mean by the decay, how it has been measured? So it is the measurement of the decay of the successive maximum amplitude of under free vibration. So what is a decay means? You can see this is my amplitude of first, you can say this, and this is my successive amplitude. So this is the second one. If you see, this is decreasing in this. So what is the rate of decrease in the, you can say the amplitude with in the successive two cycles or two amplitudes? That is nothing but it has been called as the decay in the motion, or sometimes we say as attenuation of the motion, right? So if let's go further to understand this in a more detail. So what I'm doing is I'm putting, you can say, the defining more term in terms of the decay of the motion. I will say I will measure this decay of the motion in terms of logarithmic decrement. And I am giving, you can say, notation for logarithmic decrement is delta. Let us draw the same figure. So this is on x-axis, sorry, y-axis, this is x of t, let's say, right? And on x-axis, there is a time t. If I draw the response of this underdamped free vibration, then this is my x0, let's say. It is started from this point, and then it is harmonically rotated, and it is following, you can say, e raised to minus eta omega t envelope, and so that my amplitude is been decreasing. If you see the time period td, that is nothing but 2 pi by omega d, where omega d is nothing but underdamped free vibration frequency. Then this is what we have seen, where my eta value is less than 1. I think we have seen all these things. Now let us understand here. This is very important from this, like a delta, which is my logarithmic decrement, right? So logarithmic decrement, if I say, and as per the previous definition, we have found out that it is the rate at which the amplitude or two successive amplitude is being decreasing. So what I'm doing is, let's say the amplitude of my first this response is x1, and if I take this is my x2, right? Then if I can take the ratio like this, ln x1 upon x2, I will get, you can say, this value of delta, because these are the two successive amplitudes. Similarly, if I can take this also, x2 and x3. Similarly, I can take x3 and x4 and so on up to xn minus 1 into xn. This is nothing but it is my logarithmic decrement as per definition. Now, let us try to put this formula. So if I put delta is equal to ln x1 by x2, right? Delta is nothing but ln x1 by x2. Now, what do you mean by x1? X1 is nothing but it is the displacement at time t1. It is the displacement or the response at time t1. This probably the displacement at time t2, where the t2 is what? Can I say that the t2 is nothing but t1 plus td? T1 plus td, am I right? Because t1 is up to here and this is nothing but td, right? So this is t1 plus td, that is nothing but it is called as t2. Now let's see, I'm using this into this formula. So x1 is nothing but it is the time displacement at time t1. So if I write this equation in terms of, you can see the original equation what you have derived earlier. So what is those equation is? You just remember the underdamped free vibration case normal equation which says e raised to minus eta omega t into a cos omega dt plus b sin omega dt. Now here from this particular formula I can say omega is nothing but omega d upon 1 minus eta square. So if I say e raised to minus eta in place of omega, what I am writing, this is my omega d upon 1 under root of 1 minus eta square. I am replacing for omega, and t here is t1 because I am going to take the amplitude at time x1. So this will become t1, and then there is a term of a cos omega dt plus b sin omega dt. I am not writing here because this term is going to be cancelled because it is the same in both the cases. Similarly, if you take the e raised to minus eta omega d upon 1 minus eta square, which is the replacement of this, and the time here will come is t1 plus what will come? Either a 2 pi, right? Either a 2 pi because it completes one cycle, right? So basically it is nothing but 2 pi by omega d, right? It will come like 2 pi by omega d. So we have written here T2 is equal to T1 plus TD, T1 plus 2 pi by omega d. Now, if you see, and then you can say this function of harmonic function a cos omega dt plus b sin omega dt. Since this is almost equal terms because it is going in a, you can say the harmonic, decreasing harmonic functions. So this will be, you can say, not the governing function. I can cancel it out. And if I can write this particular equation in terms of this, then this equation will be delta is equal to this. If you solve, means this minus this, if you do it, then you will get this particular formula, which is nothing but delta is equal to 2 pi eta upon 1 minus eta square. So if you see the logarithmic decrement, what you have found out is not dependent upon now the value of successive amplitude. It is now totally dependent. We have converted this particular equation in terms of damping ratio. So if you know the value of damping ratio, then you can easily calculate what will be the decrement into the motion, or what is the rate of decrement in the motion if you know the value of n, where definitely your eta value which should be less than 1 because it is applicable only for underdamped free vibration case. So this equation is only valid for underdamped free vibration case. So this is what the actually concept I'm putting forward for logarithmic decrement. You can find out with the help of two things. One, that is if you have a history then or response, then you can calculate by two successive amplitude, put it in this particular formula here, and find out the value of delta, or you can use the value of eta here, and you can find out the same with delta. Whatever the value is feasible with you, whatever the value is available with you. So now what's the question remains is, if you refer IS 5249, which specify the method to find out the damping ratio from the vibrational record. So if you have an oscillator or the seismograph which can record this response of any vibrating system, for example, suppose if you have a water through which you are actually lifting the water, for example, and if you have an oscillator or the recording instruments which can actually record that particular response of the motor, then probably generally it is a sinusoidal motion, right? So if you can record those things, then from this recording you can actually find out the value of 2 pi eta upon 1 minus based on this particular equation. However, the motor's case may not be true because it is the force vibration case, because you are continuously applying the electricity. But for any underdamped free vibration case, this equation is applicable. And this particular method, what I'm going to discuss further, that is being given in this particular code, which specify how to find out the damping ratio from the vibration record of the successive amplitudes. So if you have a vibrational record like this, what we have seen, any vibration record, if you have, sorry, it should be like this. And so on. Suppose this is a vibration record if you have. Then you can put this formula, delta is equal to 2 pi eta upon 1 minus under root of 1 minus eta square, which is nothing but, you have seen already, ln x1 upon x2, or is equal to ln x2 by x3. Basically here you need to know the successive amplitude x1 and x2, but physically when you are doing the experiment in the field, it is very, very difficult to recognize two successive amplitude, you can say, in a very, very fast motion of a time. And that is why this particular method has been established. If you simplify this equation, then this will become x1 by x2 is equal to x2 upon x3 is equal to xn minus xn into xn upon xn plus 1. I'm taking ln on other side, so it becomes e raised to delta. Now if I'm taking n number of cycles, then this will become e raised to n delta. If I simplify this based upon this x1 upon xn plus 1, then this formula will be, this n will come out here, so 1 upon n will become ln x1 upon n plus 1. So basically from this equation you can find out the value of delta, which is logarithmic decrement, and from the logarithmic decrement, if you want to find out the value of eta also, that is also you can find out, or any other quantity from if the other quantity is available. How will you do this? What is the purpose of this? Basically here the n value will come into this. This n represents the number of cycles in which this particular amplitude has been recorded. So n is denoting the number of cycles. So for example, suppose I know this first amplitude, which is x1, and if I know, let's say, this amplitude afterwards, let's say this is my xn amplitude, right? And if I know this is 1, 2 and third cycle, then my value of n is equal to 3, and so on. If I put this amplitude value of this and this in this formula, then I can easily calculate the value of delta. And that is what the purpose of putting this particular equation. So this way you can find out the value of eta or a damping ratio physically in the laboratory by means of experiment, by means of the oscillograph, that what you are getting on the oscillometer, right? So this way I'm concluding my underdamped free vibration case, damped free vibration case. So we have seen in this particular section two vibration cases. First is undamped free vibration, where the damping will not be there. And then we have seen damped free vibration, in which we have seen three cases: over damped free vibration, critical damped free vibration, and the under damped free vibration. And from under damped free vibration, we have established this particular equation, which is logarithmic decrement. And the logarithmic decrement is to find out the what is the value of damping ratio by means of the experiment, right? So this way we are completing this under damped free vibration case. Now let us move ahead and let us go to the, before go, let us take, you can say the any example, any questions if you have. Okay, so let us go further. So yeah, theory of vibration 3 is visible. This slide is visible to you. May I get in response? This slide is visible. Okay, one more time I will share. Now is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, this is vibrational PPT of 3. Let's see now. So now in this third case, now we are going to discuss the forced vibration. Okay, so let us see how the forced vibration case will comes into the picture. So first case what we are considering in the case of forced vibration is harmonic vibration with viscous damping. Okay, as you know, while we are taking forced vibration, as per definition, if I draw the MSD diagram, it will be look like this. Okay, it will be, let me take the pointer. Now if you see this here, so this is my mass. It is connected with damper of damping coefficient C. It is also connected with the spring with the stiffness K. And now you need to give continuous external force P of T. And here they are saying this exciting force or the external force, which is a harmonic in nature. So my value of P of T is nothing but it is of some sine or the cosine term. So continuously I am giving, you can say, this particular force in terms of either sine theta or in terms of the cos theta, which is a harmonic in nature. So basically I am putting force vibration, harmonic vibration with viscous damping. That is what the case I am going to consider. Now this is the summary of what I'm going to discuss, but let us take, you can say, more detail and try to explain this particular thing. Okay, so let us draw this particular thing. So first I am drawing this particular figure. Let's see, this is my mass is being connected with the spring. It is being connected with the damper, and this is my external force. I'm supposed to say it is, let us say, F of T. And under this particular external force, since it is a forced vibration, this particular mass is being moving to the displacement of x of t in time t. So if you see the generalized equation of motion, then this will become this, which is mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx is equal to ft, right? Here the ft will be introduced. In the case of free vibration, this tends to 0. Generally हमने यहाँ पे 0 लिया था, but now it becomes some value, f of t will come. Now this, what is the value of f of t? Since I am saying this particular external force is the harmonic nature. So I'm putting forced vibration with the harmonic excitation. So this f of t is nothing but, this is, I'm taking like p cos lambda t. Up sine lambda, you can say the sine lambda t also. There is no problem, because we are saying that it is a harmonic excitation. So you can take p sine lambda t or p cos lambda t, both are same, no problem, right? So suppose I am assuming my f of t is p cos lambda t. Now what is a lambda here? This lambda is nothing but it is a one more frequency. Up till now we have seen three frequency in the case of free vibration. First is omega, which we have said it is a natural frequency of vibration. Second, we have seen omega d, which is my underdamped free vibration. Then third, we have seen which is omega d cap, which is called as overdamped free vibration. And now this is the fourth one. I am saying this is the lambda, which is called as the exciting frequency, or we may say that it is the operating frequency. Now, what do you mean by operating frequency? Lambda is, for example, suppose to run this particular vibration, if I'm putting the motor to vibrate this particular system. For example, suppose just you assume this is your foundation. On the foundation, you are going to put some machine which is vibrating, or let's say your DC motor or AC motor, right? What you are using for lifting the water in your house, for example. So this is I'm taking as a machine. And to hold this particular machine as a civil engineer, I need, you can say, the foundation. This is a very simplest case. I'm going to consider this particular application. So as you are starting this particular motor, this motor is vibrating rotationally with certain RPM. This RPM is nothing but it is the frequency of this harmonic motion. So if you plot the response, how the motor is vibrating, it is exactly looking like this. Am I right? Harmonic motion, right? Like this, what you have drawn here. So motor is vibrating with this. And if you find out the frequency of this, that is nothing but it is the lambda. So this is my exciting or operating frequency of the machine. So that is my nothing but lambda. And whatever the frequency I'm going to find out for my foundation, it may be, you can say, the natural frequency, because this is my structure. So it may be omega d, or it can be omega, whatever in which this particular foundation has been moving. Generally, it is the natural frequency in which the foundation has been rotating. So this is not known as exciting or the operating frequency by means of the external, you can say, the machine or any other vibrating tool. So I hope it is clear. So this is my exciting or operating frequency, where P is nothing but the amplitude of this particular cos term. So you can see this is not, this is all amplitude are same. So this value is nothing but it is the capital P. That is what I am assuming for this particular f of t value. Now let us move further. So if I put this value into the equation, which is this, then this differential equation will going to become like this: mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx is equal to p cos lambda t. Now let us simplify this particular equation. So this whole is been divided with m. So this will become x double dot, then c by m into x dot plus k by m into x is equal to p by m cos lambda t. So this equation, if I'm replacing, if you know in the last example, you have used this particular equation, which is nothing but 2m eta omega. I think you have used this equation to find out the value of eta in previous two examples, what we have seen yesterday. From this, what I'm doing is value of c by m, I'm replacing in this way. The c by m is nothing but this, right? So c by m, I'm going to put, that is 2 eta omega. K by m, as you know, k by m is nothing but it is the omega square. So this differential equation will be this way. So it is x double dot plus 2 eta omega into x dot plus omega square x is equal to p upon m cos lambda t. Now this particular differential equation, I need to find, to bring the solution of this in terms of x of t, I need to find out the form of the solution. So again, you need to go back to your mathematics book and see that this is a second order differential equation, which is equals to this harmonic function, means cos lambda t or some cos theta, something kind of stuff, in which what will be the form of differential equation. And if you see the differential equation, which have a two different parts, one is complementary function. This CF is nothing but the x of t of complementary function, and other is x of t of particular integral, right? So basically, if you want to find out the solution in terms of x of t, then you will have a two part. First is the x of t of complementary function, and other is the x of t of particular integral. Now this we will solve tomorrow. I'm stopping here. I will take, you can say, the few questions if you have, and we will discuss it in detail tomorrow. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer you.